Okay, so we'll be talking about PlantStar 4.0. Um, we'll start with just like an overview, um, maybe a little bit of history, and uh, then we'll kind of just jump into it, into the
Okay.
system, and yeah, start showing the different pages and the different things you can do in the system.
Sounds good.
Let's start here with okay, well, I guess I said history, so I'll start with the history. PlantStar, it's been around for decades. It's uh, it used to be a Windows application, um, and also partly in the browser, and um, it's a system that gets installed in factories and it collects data um, from machines that are operating in the factories, and then with that data, a lot of different things can happen. It collects data, and it also from the machines. It also, users can be putting data into the system as well, and then you could do different things like view data. You can sort of be interactive with it to see, what's going on um, in your factory. Maybe, machines are down, they're having problems, or the users want to put them down, or the users, fix something, so they want to take the machine, like say that the machine's no longer down and everything's fine, or those stuff like that can be happening automatically depending on how things are configured in the system. Um, so it's been around for a long time, and uh, about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, um, it was decided that we want to make a new system. It should have the same functionality as the old system, but have more modern and more flexible. PlantStar's pretty much uh, been in like the plastics industry and the metals industry, so we want to kind of expand to allow it to be able to be used in other industries, because there's some things that are very specific in the system to the way plastics companies do things, but it doesn't need to be that way. I mean, um, there's many similarities between a factory making plastics and maybe a factory doing something else. I don't know what, but just something else. It's they have machines that are making things.
But the
And
old system was mainly plastic and metals, but then 4.0 is gonna have a lot more room.
that is the idea.
Oh,
um, Now, I don't think we've actually been to any place that's not plastics, so we haven't sort of gotten the feedback of, oh yeah, it does work. But it's sort of there's an attempt here to sort of genericize things enough. So, like, just for example, like terminology in the old system, it would, when something is made from a machine, it sort of the machine makes one thing or whatever. The old system terminology would be like a shot. It would call it a shot, and that's, I'm pretty sure that's specific to plastics because like with like injection molding or whatever, right? It would like, or I don't know, maybe I'm not right, but I assume it's because it's like it shoots the plastic in or something, and it's like,
sure.
and they call it like the weight of it, they call it shot weight and or whatever. So, um, if maybe we want to go to a factory that's like, I, I don't even know, some other thing, they're not gonna call it that. So, we've genericized it where we just call it a cycle. or
Okay.
whatever. So yeah,
Makes sense.
yeah, things like that. So it's an attempt. We've yet to see if it'll work, but that's the plan. Um, so yeah, so we've been working on this system for about 3 years. Um, so there's sort of two main sort of features of the system, I would say. Um, one's called production monitoring, and the other one's called process monitoring. Um, for the most part, for the first, 2 years, I guess, we were working on production monitoring, getting production monitoring into PlantStar 4.0 in the new system. That mainly revolves around counting parts. So machines are making parts, and um, there's a big interest in counting the parts, how many are good, how many are bad, and what percentage are bad, and that kind of information can be used to tell you like the health of the machine, the OEE, overall equipment or overall equipment and efficiency. I think that stands for is like a calculation of a bunch of different things going on with a machine that can kind of all aggregate into a percentage that tells you like if it's basically how well your machine's doing, I guess. So, and we'll see more about
That's
that
part
later.
of production.
That's what.
Part of the production process.
Yeah, as part of it's like a metric based on, I guess you'd say, production monitoring, um, because it has to do with like the parts made. Um, yeah, we can look at. I think I have a document that actually shows the actual how it's calculated. So just I don't even know where. Oh, here it is. OE. Um, oh well, that's too bad. No, it's in the recording. Kill that. So there's OEE, it's availability times productivity times quality. And you can see here's a breakdown. Productivity is the gross parts divided by the uptime. So gross parts, part of part counting. How many total parts did you make? Standard rate is how many parts are you making every cycle? Quality is net pieces over group pieces, so
Okay.
this calculate yeah all this is like the calculation to get you your OEE percentage, and then that can tell you, I guess, people could use that percentage to know how well things are going. I'll just skip ahead for a second. In the system, there's a page where you can actually see the OEE percentage. It's this gauge, and it kind of breaks it down, the different calculations. So people use that to see how good their system's doing. And that, that's a production monitoring side of things, is part counts and cycles and things like that. And then and uh, and process monitoring is, it's basically like measuring, or do you know what it is? Maybe I don't have to. I don't know how
Uh,
much you know. If there's anything I'm saying that you're like, yeah, I already know about that, you go ahead and say so.
no, I know like some examples, like it can take the temperature of the machine. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
is there a couple more examples of that?
There's like pressure. So like with plastics, it's you can measure as the plastic's getting injected into the mold, how much pressure there
Uh,
is. So that's something that I guess there's a measurement, and if you graph out the values of that measurement, then people like I guess they use it, they see patterns, and so they know, what the graph is supposed to look like as that plastic's getting injected in. Um, and that graph is made because the pressure is being monitored as the plastics being injected, and those measurements that the the measurement tool is taking are being collected and sent into PlantStar, and then PlantStar can use that data to make the graph to show people like, here's
okay.
how the measurement's going. So um, yeah, so that's process monitoring.
What else? Is there any more examples you can think of besides temperature and pressure?
Um, I think there's one. Let me see. I can look at our fake data and see if we have something. Because I think we had two. There's like blow pressure and something else. Oh, this is the wrong data. Screw position.
Okay.
That's another one.
Yeah, because the screws putting the plastic into the mold. Screw position.
Yeah. Those are, from my perspective, there's only two or I guess three, because temperature, I guess, is another one. And I don't really know any others off the top of my head.
Okay.
Log out here. So now we're still, PlantStar 4.0 is still in progress. Their production monitoring is there in the system. So as in it's collecting that data, cycles and things like that, and you can set up to collect the data how you want it, and it collects it. There's other features, I guess we'll go through them. It doesn't have 100% of what the old system had yet. We're still putting things in, so
Okay.
that's evolving. And then process monitoring is not in the system yet. It's we have a beta version of it right now, and it's out at a customer. It doesn't have the full feature set of process monitoring, but it does have the data collection and a sort of uh, how do I say it? Whatever, first draft or basic charting.
So
Like
they're trialing it for us to catch bugs and stuff,
yeah,
or things
so
that maybe they think we need to add.
exactly. They're a beta customer, so and we did betas with production monitoring, or what we have of production monitoring as well. So they have the system, and they'll basically test it out for us, like in a more real way, and give us feedback. So that's DPG. Those are that's our process monitoring beta customer.
Okay.
Okay, so um, let's take a look at this network topology graphic. I'm pretty sure this is on the okay. It's either on our website or there's an even newer version of this on the website. I don't know. This one's fine. It'll work just fine. Um, so um, let's say you're on a factory floor. We'll just look at this sort of section over here. Um, so if you're on the factory floor, here's your machines, and they're making parts, and the machines and every cycle it's making a certain number of parts, so it's cycling, it's making parts. People are, the parts come out of the machine, and an operator on the floor is looking at the parts and inspecting them, and is it good, is it bad. The machine, maybe sometimes it's having problems, and so every cycle there's sort of an expectation of how long that cycle should be, and maybe the machine is going fast, is cycling faster than normal or slower than you expect. And so maybe it's like not getting cycles, maybe it's not making cycles, maybe something's wrong, maybe. So there's a bunch of things that can be going on here with this machine. All those different things I'm mentioning, it can be collected as data.
Counting cycles is a good one for production.
Yeah, exactly. So every time a cycle happens, when that cycle started and when the cycle ended are two data points that the machine can um, communicate to PlantStar. So you can see these machines, they have these lines with arrows, bidirectional. That's basically data. Data can go from the machine to this is called a DCM. This is PlantStar basically, or that DCM can send data back into the machine if it's set up for that. What this is a DCM. It's a data collection module, so it collects data. And that'll be a physical box in the factory, and it'll have a physical wire from the machine to the DCM.
Okay.
And what's there's more than one way. Some of this gets into hardware, and I get a little, I'm not 100%, but I'll just say what I think, how I think it is. So, I know that there are digital inputs, so like a copper wire or whatever, and it'll physically go into the DCM. Actually, Vincent's here, so Vincent could chime in if he wants to
Oh yeah.
correct me.
So I can actually do like share a video if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm actually I've got this. Let's see if I can. Oh, it's gonna. So here I've got a test unit, and this is the I/O rack, and this would be inside the box, but I've got it out here with extra long cables so that I can, test. Like I've got a bunch of these pieces that just came in that Bill's having me test to see if they're okay. These parts here are the digital input output, and basically it just checks to see if like the two pins are shorted, and it's 8 bits each, and you can do like a little debug program here, and it'll show you. I don't know if you can see it, but it'll like show you what digital information is coming like in, and usually
So Vincent,
yeah.
so the green things you were showing, that's
Yeah.
where a copper wire would go from the machine into each of those pins into one pin, and the thing on the screen you're showing is every column represents one of those inputs, and so if a signal comes in over the wire, then
like
that
if
column
these
will
two
show
are
a 1,
like
right?
if these two are shorted, then it'll show as like
So like the blinking
that
light.
one. Yeah.
That was like the
Like
first
that
input.
bit. And so then the software sees that connection and then goes, oh, that means this, and then that's something that the customers would define, I think. But
Are you able to have your camera pointed at the screen like closer so we can see, and then touch the input with the screwdriver at the same time? Can you reach that?
Normally I would, but it's actually a bit wrong. It's water falling right now, which means the lights are like going down, and which means it's not communicating with the DCM. And so I'm actually asking Chris, like, hey, I think it needs to cold boot. Is this IP address enabled for cold boot? Because cold booting is something that like where it copies like all like the appropriate files from the PlantStar host, which is a server that all of these talk to, that is like also on the factory floor, I assume, and it like puts like some sort of information in like the things themselves, and I'm not too clear on that, but I just know that when it's not communicating properly, it keeps doing this over and over again. But so this is the digital input output, and so like there are also analog ones, and those I don't believe. Here's a big like test rig that we've got for a bunch of them at once. But
That would have been an analog, that big test rig, or is that the
oh no,
digitals?
this is a bunch of digitals, and like this is for testing the brand new USB ones, because like this this old thing here is parallel. But the analogs, which I had to test a bunch of a while ago, they look like this, and they're basically one row, and it's like the same kind of thing. Like here's where the people would actually stick the wires in from the machines and then screw them down so that they stay in place, and then like it'd come out of the hole there and go to the machine.
So
But
okay, that looks like
these ones
exactly like the digital one.
Yeah, they do look.
Yeah. So they look the same, but the analog ones sense voltage, and the digital ones are just, is it on or off? And these ones, if you like when I was testing them, like here's like a voltage thing, and so he was having me like test it with like 2 volts, and then 4, and then 10, and like to see if the number lines up with what it's supposed to be, like to verify that it's detecting, you know, stuff properly. But yeah, so that's what that is.
Makes sense.
Cool.
But I'm glad I was able to. Here's a bunch of like test rigs that the engineers have, and I assume are using as they're working from home.
Yeah. So that first thing we were looking at, that gray box, that was the DCM.
Yeah.
Next to the screen in the back.
This here is one that came back from a customer, and they put like a router in there and a bunch of other stuff that isn't usually here. Like I don't know what they would have used this for, but this is like here's the digital stuff, and then here's the analog stuff, and the digital stuff
between the input and outputs.
Oh, so the inputs here is like 8 bits each, so it's 16, like you can connect 16 different like things from a machine for it to detect. And then I think and then the output is the bottom one on the Tar Digital card. And I'm not sure what that's used for, but I know that yeah, I know that it's
I know one. Okay, there. Yeah, so the DCM, like I said on this picture, you know, there's bidirectional communication. So the machine can send information into the DCM. That would be like through the input. That's the machine sending a signal, like the digital input. It's sending a signal that's high into one input. The DCM can send information out through those outputs. That, you know, that ranges from very simple things, and it could be to even more advanced crazy things. I don't think we do that yet, but you could imagine, you know, and this isn't a real life example, so we don't actually do this, but like the machine sends in, you know, I finished a cycle. So that means that the machine made parts. And then you could imagine that the DCM sends an output to a robot, you know, that the robot's expecting an input from the DCM. So the DCM sends out a piece of information to the robot, and then that tells the robot, you can go collect the part. You know?
Oh, okay.
So that's not, we don't have that. You know, it doesn't do, you know, but I believe that's super advanced. You know, but a simple example that actually does happen is if the machine goes down. So that means there's like a problem. The cycle didn't happen in the amount of time it was expected to happen. I'll talk more about what that means and how to configure it. But once the DCM sees that, because the machine tells the DCM when the cycle started, and then it also is supposed to tell it when the cycle ends. So if the DCM doesn't see that the cycle ended in the right amount of time, the machine goes down. So it can send an out.
Be
Well,
like
what
the light on top or the
exactly
intercom?
the light? Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. So I've seen that in actual, like in McPherson, one of our customers. They have
Mm.
the old system. They had a HMI, a screen right next to their machines, and there's these like really old looking light bulbs on it
Oh
that
man,
say down and assist and stuff. So those could actually go on.
I think I actually saw one of those on the wood floor. but
Yeah, I think we have
yeah. So
some.
this is a tri-digital card, and so it's the two inputs and the output, and then here's a single analog, and so this is just one row, and this is like the
Of
volt sensing
outputs.
one, and then here's what we call the CPU module. I don't know if that's like an appropriate term for it, but this is a bad one. But this is the part where it actually connects into the computer. And a long time ago, all of this used to be one giant board, but now we have these like modules that you can snap in and out, and like customers can request, oh, we'd like 2 analogs or we'd like 4, and so it's different for like each, I guess, sales order, or depending on what the customer wants.
So at some point, if they need to add to a DCM down the road, we just go out and snap those in, and or do they send it
Yeah,
back and we do that?
I think either they send it back or we send them the parts, and they or I don't know, but I guess it doesn't. I don't know if that matters. But
I think it's still limited though, right? I mean,
hmm.
you can only have 16 machines connected to a DCM, right? You can't just keep adding inputs.
Oh yeah, I
Right.
think so. I remember. I think I remember Bill talking about like a limitation like that.
Yes, it's 16. It's 16 machines, and if they're doing production monitoring, that's the max. So they'd have to, if a customer wanted to add on, right, we would send a quote for an additional DCM, ship
That
them a
makes sense.
DCM, and depending upon the customer, honestly, the majority of them will just wire it up themselves, or we could even help them virtually.
Do we
I
send
I didn't know that.
all the outputs, even if they're not utilizing them up front? Do we still send it fully capable?
So, are we talking analogs or are we talking outputs, Clatch? Or are we the same thing?
I don't know the answer to the question, but I think we do. I think we just every DCM just has the max stuff.
Okay.
I'm guessing. I don't know. Maybe Vincent knows. I actually don't know.
I don't know.
I haven't heard anything, since I've been here of like, well, we're only putting, 8 inputs because they said they wanted.
Yeah, no,
So
they
Right.
come with it. A lot of our customers will purchase analogs on top of purchasing a DCM, but yeah, they come with it.
Okay.
that's an interesting. I don't know if you're trying to say like a cost saving thing. That's an interesting idea.
I do know that like a couple of orders back, there was one customer who didn't want any analogs. They just wanted the digital input output, and that's it. Like they didn't have any machines that they needed analogs
Correct.
for, I guess.
So
That
maybe we
happens.
didn't put him on. I don't know. That's, I actually don't know like much
I
about.
was just thinking of it from a control aspect for
Yeah,
us. You
that
only
must have
send
been
what
what
they
it was.
need, and then if they need more, they're contacting us.
Yeah.
That's an interesting idea to bring up or ask somebody. I don't know who would know. Maybe Tony.
What's your
or
thoughts on
Bill.
that, Dave?
In terms of what? In terms of what? Limiting the amount of outputs or inputs?
Yeah, only sending exactly what they're paying for, requesting, and then controlling if they need more instead of sending them out.
Yeah, I would talk to Tony just to see what standard. I'm almost positive it's standard just to add them. And from a production standpoint and timing, it's rather simple. So it's not
Mm.
too difficult. So we just provide it. That is a huge benefit as PlantStar as well. Because I think I told you this, Derek, most of our competitors that are connecting to machines, you need hardware at every single machine. So for example, the company I worked for before this, they would provide a monitor, a thin client, which the software is on, and you would need that at every single machine. So when you're talking
Oh
about
wow.
when you're talking about a customer that is having 50 machines, You know, you're talking about a hardware with our past company at, thousands of dollars per machine. Well, when you're talking about a DCM, it's $2,500 only. We changed our pricing; it was $3,600 last year. $2,500 that can connect up to 16 machines. That's where we can beat a lot of people out with pricing. So I don't know if it's something we
Nice.
want to change. It's pretty standard. It's a huge benefit for us.
Well, you could use it as a sales point too, I guess, for sending them out, even and they
Yeah.
have extra import net exports.
Yep.
I don't know if it even costs extra, right? I think it's all one price.
Yeah,
So
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's
I
$2,500 for a DCM. If they want to purchase analogs, it's like another 700.
oh, I see. It does cost extra. Okay.
Yeah. My
Okay,
my
sorry, I'm
impression
probably
is
getting you too far in the
what
weeds.
customer need. Oh yeah,
This
sorry.
yeah, this stuff is like
I'm glad I was able to show you guys like the
yeah, thanks for
physical
showing
stuff.
that. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I guess I'll keep going.
Sorry, get you on a
No, it's okay. We should do more. That was educational, so we should always talk everything out for sure. Plus, because I know I'm listening to me is probably extremely boring. So, any tangent topics would be good. So,
Okay.
it brought up a lot of good points too, by the way, because I'm talking about these machines on the factory floor and the DCMs here. So like we said, you can have 16 machines connected to one DCM. If you have more than 16 machines, then you'll just get another DCM, and so there could be multiple of these physical DCM boxes on the factory floor. And yeah, so those are communicating back and forth. This DCM is collecting that data from the machines. I'll get to the APU in a second, but it's forwarding on that information to a central, APU unit, basically a server, and but it also is sort of a standalone machine in itself, a system itself. So it has an operating system on it, and it is serving up a web page that people can connect to. So people can connect to this DCM, and they'll be able to see an interface in their browser. Basically, you can connect it through the browser, and you can see an interface where you can see information, but you can also interact with PlantStar. That's where this HMI thing is here. It's a human machine interface. So it's basically just a touch screen or a tablet or a web browser on a computer. Is something, and it's also got bidirectional communication because if you connect, you'll connect to it through the browser, and so the DCM is serving up that page.
So question.
Yeah.
Sorry, if the operator's on the HMI, like a plant manager could be at his desk computer seeing the same thing that operator's seeing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. This is the system's browser based now, so yeah, you connect to the IP address of the DCM, and you're looking at the same thing that other people are looking at.
And are both systems that way, our old system and 4.0?
Well, the old system was partially like a Windows application. I think it was the same thing in the sense that however they were connecting, they would be seeing the same information.
Okay.
Just how they're seeing it, I guess, is different. So they wouldn't necessarily go to. There was some stuff in a browser, but there was other stuff that you just had to be on Microsoft Windows.
But then 4.0.
And one I think one difference is on the DCMs themselves. The old ones, the panorama ones, they did have there was an option for like an individual DCM to have a like a monitor, like a touchscreen monitor, and there's like a sort of display. There's like a sort of GUI, and then of course you can also use the HMIs to like see all that information. But I believe the 4.0 ones don't have like the touchscreen interface. Like it's just headless, which is like what we call it when it's like just the box and there's no monitor connected to it. But last I heard, the engineers are working on that.
Yeah, they're working on it right now. I know that. I know Joseph Waggy is working on a. So right now, what happens is, if you wanna see this PlantStar interface, you'll have to connect from the outside of a lap, tablet or a computer or whatever.
Yeah.
If you need to do something with the DCM itself, so like if you need, for example, PlantStar is running on this DCM box, and you want to see the logs or something. See what's logging. Maybe it crashed, or I'll just give my example because I'm an engineer. So, what I need to do is connect to the DCM, but not through that interface. I need to connect, via command line, sort of at the Linux. It's running Linux, so like on Linux. So, if I'm I can use a program from home that can connect to it if I can remote to it. But if I plug a monitor and keyboard into this DCM, I'm just going to see a command line interface, basically.
Right.
No graphical interface. I think what you're saying, Vincent, is there is a way that I can plug in a monitor and keyboard to this box, and like a Linux GUI, like looking like Windows, basically Microsoft Windows pops up. Is that what you mean?
There, it's like some kind of web. I think it loads some kind of web browser, and actually, I could probably.
I don't even know what it looks like. I've heard about it. Joseph Waggy's working on it right now. I don't actually know what it looks like. I heard it as a GUI, but I didn't know if it meant like the DCM interface that you see when you connect to the browser, or if it meant some other thing.
I know that it doesn't work properly if you don't have a touchscreen monitor or like a serial touchscreen monitor connected. It looks very. Let's see. I'm gonna see if I can change this one to have it to try and load it.
Are you sharing something? Are you showing us something? Or
oh no, I'm just. I suppose I can show this. This is I have to turn it around. So right now I'm logging in, and I'm going to do PStar setup, which is.
Okay, so this is the command line that you would see when you connect a monitor keyboard to the DCM.
Okay.
And so here's the setup, and so in this I can like change the IP address and like a bunch of other things. But the thing I want to change is.
Oh, that's a new. These are new. I've never seen these.
Yeah. So this is our, so really focus on 3 types of HMIs that the customer can purchase. The new one is what Vincent is showing, and Derek, this is what we took pictures of when we were at the office. This one is going.
This isn't 4.0 though. This is Panorama.
Are you on the new HMI? It looks like you are.
Oh, this is just a monitor hooked up to the DCM.
Okay, so you're on like the box. So that's actually the old one.
Yeah.
Right. You're on the box. So I think it's important for Derek to understand though. There's 3 types of HMIs, right? That one that you're on is really industrial box, heavier. That's
right.
$1,900. That's what the majority of our customers have. Those can be connected, right? They can be mounted to the machine. They can come with a stand that's near the machine, right? The other one is the new HMI that we were working on at the office. That's a lot more lightweight. That has a Visa, I think you call it Visa mount, whatever it is. That can be really mounted anywhere. A lot lighter, a lot more capability, a lot faster, blah, blah, blah. And the other one is just what we sell is our new Samsung tablet that they can get with an industrial case. Now, I honestly tell our customers, you can go buy your own tablets. You can go to Target and buy your own tablets because, like Klatch is saying, it's a web browser. They don't have to have it, but these are made for more, factory settings, other than just a plain and simple tablet. So those are the 3 options that the customer has to purchase through PlantStar.
And I'll talk a little bit. It's in this picture. I'll talk about it a little bit. I think the ones we sell, the tablets we sell have they have fingerprint, but they also have like scanners, like barcode scanning, which is something you can do. So that would come with the ones we sell.
That is correct.
We have more capabilities down the road with the ones we're selling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what is this doing? It's building up the GUI, and it's gonna.
this is the DCM like booting, and I set it to try and load the GUI. I don't know if it's going to work though, because this is just like a plain monitor. This isn't even an HMI. This is just a monitor I hooked up to this. But it should load it. I don't know if it'll work properly, but it should show eventually. But it's gonna take a while.
It sounds like everybody except for me has seen this GUI. So everybody else, like I'm the only one here who doesn't actually know what it looks like. So yeah, if it doesn't load, that's fine. Looks like it didn't load, right?
It's giving me a place to log in. I don't know why. I don't know. Chris isn't responding. I think he might be off today.
It's no problem.
Yeah.
It's fine. It doesn't work.
Let's continue with the training and go through the topology here.
Oh yeah, it just tried to load it, but it didn't work. It's tried
Okay.
to Firefox.
Fatal error.
Oh well.
All right.
Yeah. Oh well.
We'll just keep going. So machines communicating with DCM DCM collecting that data, and it's serving up pages that you can connect to this DCM directly and see information about what's running on this, what's happening on this machine right now. It's also bidirectional, so you can tell the user who's seeing this DCM interface through an HMI can do things to affect PlantStar basically. So for example, you can like I said, if let's say the machine was down or something because cycles were bad, and you went over and you fixed the problem, if it's not going to automatically know that it's not down anymore, you can come over and through the HMI and take that machine out of down and tell PlantStar that the machine's out of down. So basically, you can think of PlantStar as sort of like it's a virtualized version of the factory. So, if the machine made a part in real life, it'll tell PlantStar, and now PlantStar knows, in this virtual factory that PlantStar is, it now says, okay, yeah, I just made a part. If the thing that's running on the machine, we call them jobs. So a job is basically like an order for a certain number of parts. Basically, maybe it's like a chessboard or whatever. So they need to make chess pieces. So maybe they're like, oh, we got to make all these chessboards, so we need 10,000 chess pieces. So if a job is to make 10,000 chess pieces, if they got an order for 10,000 chess pieces, they'll make a job that says I need to make 10,000 chess pieces, and then every time a cycle happens, a certain number of those pieces are made, and that's counting towards that 10,000 pieces. So through the HMI, you can start jobs, you can end the job. So if once they start the machine and the cycle starts happening, that's when the job started. Some things right now can't be automated. So like that starting of the job, it's not automated. So there isn't like a signal that comes in to tell PlantStar, hey, I started this job. That's something where the operator comes to the HMI and clicks a button that on that interface that says, I'm starting this job. And that gets sent to the DCM. The DCM collects that piece of data, and that gets incorporated in PlantStar, keeping track of the data of now it can separate, I'm getting signals that parts are being made. I can associate it with the job that was just started.
Okay.
So
now, can you put times in the HMI to where it starts a job on itself? By itself? Or it's more of an alert.
Before,
the operator
schedule it to start.
Yeah. Does the operator still have to be there to start it though?
Right now, they have to be there to start it. They can't just there's no way to say like it started in 5 minutes or just automatically started at this time.
But it might could you set an alert, or does it pop up to let them know hit that job or anything?
No, not at the moment. There's nothing. What would you think would be the okay, I guess yeah, I guess they could, I'm trying to think. It doesn't. The answer is it doesn't. I'm trying to think from a technical standpoint of what piece of information would it use to do that. And it would probably be just the scheduled start time of the job. It would probably
Gotcha.
pop up, hey, this job's
They're
gonna
more or
start.
less just looking at the schedule than starting the jobs.
Right. I think.
Yeah. So normally, Dave, and let me know if I'm, incorrect or kind of confusing things here, but normally the customers have a scheduler, right? And the schedule is being done by this administrative person who's building out the schedule, and that's done from the APU side. So as they're loading these schedules, they're dragging and dropping all these schedules, they're saving the schedule, and that is then shown to the DCM on the shop floor. Right, Dave? Kind of with me?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the operator, like when they're looking at this HMI, they can look at this specific machine and see, okay, this job's running right now, and how many parts do I have left to make? And then they can also see what's the next job. What jobs have been scheduled after this one? Which one's supposed to be next?
Yeah. I
In
think to
terms
answer
of
your question, Derek, it's very uncommon for an operator or someone on the shop floor to be scheduling jobs.
Gotcha.
Does that help?
Yeah, that helps. I just didn't know if there was some sort of like if they're running multiple machines or something, if there was an alert that popped up like, hey, it's time to hit start and run your next job.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
I mean, that's a good idea. Because right now, yeah, you're right. They have to be looking at that machine specifically, like its screen, and seeing how many parts are left on the job running on it to know, okay, I don't have any parts that I have to make anymore because I made them all. So now I can end this job. That's a good, I'm going to write that down.
Cool.
I get a lot of feedback and suggestions during these trainings, and I have to rate a lot. So
No problem.
Guys, I'm going to hop off and jump on a call. So, Clash, appreciate your time doing this. Derek
yeah.
and Vincent, thank you for hopping on.
Yep.
All right.
See you, Dave.
Thanks,
And
guys.
we'll be doing this till 12, so if you want to pop back in. All right. Okay, so yeah, it's a good question. Anything you feel like, I guess maybe I should have said this before, but any suggestions like that, that's a good suggestion. You can just tell me right here if you want to. We do have a whole sort of project management system we use a program called Taiga, and that's where we put like what bugs, basically the tasks for the engineers to fix bugs or add new things into the system or that kind of stuff. We can set you up with an account, and if you see something, you can add your own, and then we'll see it and incorporate it into the development cycle.
Okay.
But while we're in the training right now, you can just tell me. I'll write them down and I'll add them in.
Perfect.
And I can show that maybe like briefly at the end. Maybe I'll just show Tiger real quick, but I'll also get you set up on that account.
Okay.
Okay, so we're sort of at this point we've sort of been talking about things on the factory floor. So basically, if you have a machine and you have a job running on that machine, and that job has to make a certain number of parts, and there's different pieces of information associated with that job. Then and an operator can see that through the web page. All that stuff had to come from somewhere. The meaning PlantStar knew about the machine, and PlantStar knows about the job, because somebody configured that into PlantStar. Somebody had to enter in that information in PlantStar, and that's where the APU side of things kind of comes in. The APU is the server. I think APU stands for Application Processing Unit. It's just the server that has the basically the master database, and it serves up it serves up the web page of the APU interface. So the DCM, when they look through the HMI, if they're connected to the DCM, they see a DCM interface that allows them to see what job's running and how many parts it's making and what's next in the queue, on the machine, the queue. And the APU has its own web page that is serving up. So if you connect to the IP address of the server, you'll see an APU interface, and that's where you can do things like configure the different things in PlantStar. You can say, oh, I have a machine. I need to configure that in PlantStar to tell PlantStar that this machine exists. The job running, you have to put that into PlantStar. So the APU is from like the interface side of things is where you go to configure all the different things in PlantStar. There's other things you can do as well, because once you configure things in PlantStar, that's all in service of collecting data. So then it's got a lot of data, and then you can do things with that data. You can make charts and make reports and things based off of the data that's been collected. So yeah, so that's the APU side of things. Like I said, it has a master database. So all the DCMs, they have their own database, their own mini database, just for themselves of the data that's being collected specific to the machines that are physically, connected to that DCM. They're meant to be autonomous. So, okay, I guess I didn't mention that, there's a blue line here from the DCM to the APU. So the DCM collects a bunch of data, boom, it's just sending that data back to the APU because the APU has this master database. The APU, if someone's configured a machine or they change something about this machine, it's sending data back to the DCMs as well as people are making changes. So if this connection got severed, and for some reason the DCM and the APU can't communicate with each other, the DCM continues to operate. And once they reconnect, then they'll, send each other the information.
So it continues to store all the information.
Right. The DCM continues to store it. The operators can continue to, and that's, the operators using the interface to tell the DCM thing is also it collecting data. So it continues to collect data that this machine was running and it was making parts, and then the job ended, so the operator went over and reconfigure this machine physically to do the next job, and then they started the next job, and that's all getting collected on the DCM. It's not being sent over because it's severed, but once it gets reconnected, boom, it sends it over. Now there is a time limit. There's a limit. I wouldn't say time limit, but there's a limit to how long this DCM can be disconnected from the APU. Like a storage limit, basically.
Okay.
So right now it's we say 40 days, it's a long time, and it's really meant to, like, they're really supposed to be connected all the time. There isn't any reason that they're not connected and someone's like, oh, it's fine, like that's something that is supposed to be resolved fairly quickly. But yeah, so you can imagine, maybe a factory has 5 DCMs. They're all sending the data back to the APU. So the APU has this big master database that has all the data from all the DCMs on it, as well as stuff that's been happening on the APU as well, is stored in that database.
And the administrator probably gets some sort of alert if they're not connected, telling them.
Well, yeah, actually, you can set that up. We have so I'll talk about statuses. I have this thing about statuses here.
Oh, okay.
So one of these statuses is offline, and that means APU can't connect, and you can set up alerts in the system for these different statuses. So yeah, you could set up an alert that says if a DCM goes offline, or it says a machine, but if it goes offline, then send me an email or a text or something. So
gotcha.
Let's see. So I was gonna say something else about these DCMs. Oh yeah. Yeah, Vincent earlier, he mentioned cold booting the DCMs. So on a technical level, so you can restart these APUs. Sometimes you have to reboot them. What that does with data-wise is, let's say a DCM, maybe there's a power outage, and the DCM so the power went out and the DCM turned off. But maybe the APU didn't turn off. Maybe it had a backup thing and people were still using it, or maybe just the the section of the factory where the DCM was connected had a power outage and the DCM went off. But the APU is continuing to operate, and people were still doing stuff with the APU. They're still making configurations and changes. When you turn on the DCM again, or which is the same thing as rebooting the DCM, what it does is it pulls over any data, new data, basically, that the APU has that the DCM doesn't have.
Okay.
Now that's like a reboot. There's also this thing called a cold boot, and that's used in the case where basically if we upgrade a version of PlantStar, so like right now we're on, people are on version, it's called 1.1. We're working on a new version right now called 1.1.2. And so if somebody's on 1.1 and then we say, hey, we need to give you this update, we'll upgrade the version of PlantStar, so which means that the code gets updated, and possibly the database gets updated, as in like the database tables, they might change. So what happens is we cold boot the DCM, and what that does is it replaces the code that's of PlantStar that's on this operating system on the DCM, and it also basically wipes out all the data in this DCM's database, and it pulls over all the data that the APU has. That's different from that reboot, because the reboot, when you reboot this DCM, it keeps its database the way it was, and it just pulls in new data. So let's just say the database has 5 gigs worth of data on it, and you reboot that 5 gig, it stays the way it is. But if the APU had some more information, if it had another half a gig of information that was relevant to the DCM, then it would pull in that information, update basically. But cold boot would completely empty the database, just completely empty the whole thing and recreate it, based on during the cold boot, and pull in all the new data.
Okay.
That's just I don't know how relevant that's going to be to you or anything, but that's just a piece of information of how that works.
All this is good to know.
Okay. Okay. By the way, it's been an hour, so do you want to take like a short break?
Sure.
Okay. Maybe we'll just take a 5-minute break and we'll come back.
You just gonna leave it on and mute it or something?
Yeah, we'll just stay in this meeting. I'll even leave the recording going, and
Okay.
I'll just mute and we'll come back. So see you in 5.
Okay.
I'm back. Everyone back.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. All right. So let's see. Yeah. So we can let's see. There's I'm not too great on this whole section here, but if customers have information that they want to bring into PlantStar from an outside system like an ERP system, we can do that. We have an importer at the
You
moment.
say ERP, what's that?
ERP, I think of it as just like
I think
another.
enterprise resource planning.
Yeah, isn't it just like it's like another system somewhere? It's like basically a database of their information about their company or like all like other pieces of information. It's I don't know. We can Google it, I guess.
I mean, it's if you don't think it's a big deal.
It's a
Enterprise resource planning.
I think it's just a different system, like a different software system where they have
Oh,
information.
maybe they manage their business off of it.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
so yeah, I just think of it, yeah. I don't know how to visualize that, but yeah.
Maybe that's how they add, sold jobs or scheduling and different things that they input through to our
Right.
system.
Right, it's another system where they, maybe they like a PlantStar is an MES system, kind of specific to this use case, but like, yeah, they might have another system where they have other information that is could be used in PlantStar as well, so they don't want to like, oh, I have to put it into my ERP system. Oh, now I have to go put it into PlantStar. It's like
PlantStar just catches it all from the ERP.
right. So we can set it up where, once if something is put into that ERP system, then it'll just in an automated way just basically be pulled into PlantStar's database also. We can also set up export, so we can export data out of PlantStar into a system if they want. So maybe maybe PlantStar is collecting data about a certain job or a certain product or something, and parts being made, and maybe it's originating in PlantStar, and they're like, hey, we want that in our ERP system, or we want that in some other system, some other place, so we can export that data out to wherever they want it, and then they can do whatever they want with it.
Well, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah. Cloud computing. So PlantStar is not in the cloud yet. We are in the process. I don't know if you're part of that channel. We have a channel called AWS VPC, I think, and it's basically we're working on getting it so that it could be in the cloud. The APU could be running in the cloud, and the DCMs maybe also could be running in the cloud. But we don't have that yet exactly.
Okay.
Over here it says barcode station, so we don't have barcode scanning yet, but they do, maybe they want to start a job by scanning a box and saying, hey, I'm starting this job up. So that will be in the system, and that's I don't
Well,
know
you
what
could
else.
almost like scan the box for a certain amount of parts. So you scan it for 50 parts, and then the machine runs them all, puts them in the box, and that's how you keep track of it, type of thing.
Yeah, I think that I don't know the exact use case, but yeah, you could. Maybe
Okay.
you could scan it and it would tell PlantStar like, hey, it would know how many parts are in a box, and so it would say, okay, you just made this many parts or something. There's a bunch of different ways. There's a bunch of different things you can do with the barcode stuff, but since we haven't put it in yet, I don't know exactly all the things it would be.
Sure.
Auto guided vehicle, I'm not sure. Not sure why
Yeah.
it's out here. I always forget why it's here and
Well,
what it.
probably because a lot of the plants now are putting robots in to pick things and different stuff, would be my guess. I don't know, just a lot of factories I've been in, you see little robots driving around now.
Okay. I don't know how PlantStar is doing with an auto-guided vehicle though. I don't know what its
That's a little.
role is.
I don't think it's going to run a forklift.
Right, yeah. Maybe it'll somehow signal to it like, hey, like you're saying, like you can come pick up these parts or something.
Let me jump back a step on the APU. Now, you can tell me if I'm wrong here. You can either buy the APU, they can put it on their own internal server, or it can go on the cloud. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the cloud one isn't really available yet. They can buy you're right, they could buy a physical machine from us. They can have their own like virtual, thing, APU, and we can install it on that. So like if they have a VM or something.
Now, when I said cloud, I thought somebody mentioned when I was in South Bend about like that you can buy space on the Amazon cloud.
Right, so I don't think we have it officially yet or anything. We're definitely working on putting it into AWS. We may
Okay.
have already done it, but I don't know if it's official. Like I said, there's a Teams channel called AWS VPC. Let me just see. I don't know if you got added to this. I guess not. But Chris Long, you probably
Yeah, that's who actually told me about it, or we
yeah.
talked about it. I don't know if
So
it was official or not.
he's been working with that. I don't know how official, like in what official capacity we're at
Okay.
with being able to purchase that.
But so technically you don't have to buy the APU though. It can go on an internal server they have.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, if they have like a VM or something. There's some specs. There's like a minimum specs, but I don't know where that is.
okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to check.
Okay.
You had different options.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know about. I think the DCMs are just you got to buy the box right now, basically.
Okay.
Especially because there's like a physicalness to it. Like you have to physically put these wires in. So, yeah. Okay, so I think we got a good overview here of sort of the start to finish of this system.
Yeah.
Let me see. There's a bunch of things I could do here. Maybe we'll just take a look at the interface here. So I'm in a browser and I'm connected to an APU, and so there's a login. Then I'm here on the actual APU interface. So I'll talk a little bit about just some general things you'll see around this interface, and also show the DCM interface. So on all the pages, you're going to see this top bar. You'll have a hamburger menu, which opens up so you can navigate to all the other pages. You'll see this Syscom PlantStar tells you what version you're on, and you'll have manuals available. So we have some PDF manuals that you can download them or print them, or you can just look at them in PlantStar. They're not totally up to date. We used to have a tech writer who would make these manuals, but we don't have one of those anymore, so they're not exactly up to date.
Okay.
This section here will basically tell you what page you're on. So we're on the job browse page. We can browse jobs. This locked stuff you won't really see ever, but because I'm logged in as a super user, so like as a Syscon employee. But you can change your user, you can log out, log in, and there are different languages. So you can change the language. So right now it's English, and that comes with the system. But then you can pay to have a different language. Right now we have 2 different flavors of Chinese and Spanish.
Okay.
So you always see this page. If I open up this sidebar, I'll pin it so we can just always see it and know where we are. You'll see all these different options of where you can go to do things, and like I talked about, like configuring things. So adding a machine. Let's say a customer just bought a new machine and they're like, I need to put this in PlantStar. They would go to the machines page, and that's where they would configure. They would create a machine. So let's see. Before I like go to these different pages and talk a little bit about that, there's so this features page is not something the customer sees. This is just something we would see, but there are basically paid features in the system. So actually I didn't want to do that. Let's see. I want to do this. So the system comes with unlimited users, I guess I would say. You don't have to pay for users.
Okay.
So these user licenses are outdated. We'll remove them at some point, but now we just allow you to have them all. It used to be, there was, I think you used to have to pay for users in the old system way, or you had to pay for how many concurrent users can use the system, but it's no longer the case. But like machine licenses is something where they have to pay a license fee for every time they add a certain number of machines or something. I don't know the exactly how we have it. And then there's like a bunch of features that other things. So like process monitoring is actually a paid feature. It doesn't come with the system. The production monitoring comes with the system, but process monitoring does.
Okay.
Let's see what else. So like I said, the languages are something you have to pay for. So once they pay for it, we can come in here and basically, turn it on and say they have the license and they can use it.
Okay.
So actually, I wonder what here if I'll turn off the Chinese traditional feature, and then I'll try to change. Actually, I don't know what happened. Let me refresh this. I'll change it to Chinese traditional, and then it gives me this feature error. It says it's not enabled and call us. So
Now, are licenses like based off a year or forever?
I think it's a one-time thing. I think you
Okay.
just pay for it once. And one thing you saw in here was trial. So you can do a try. I guess they could do a trial, and then we would just put in when does the trial end, and they can use it while they're in trial.
That's a good feature to have, though. Let them try it out.
Yeah. Okay, I won't go through all these. We don't have everything that's in this list actually in the system yet. So, for example, process journals. That's part of process. That's like a sub thing in process monitoring, I guess. It has to do. It's basically like a comment thread almost. I think it's a place like so. It's like that's considered a journal entry, I guess. Is when they add like some text, like a text entry, and then it can be responded to, or they can make new threads or something. So I guess that whole thing is a paid feature, but we haven't even developed it yet. These these two also not really. I don't know how important it is to go through which ones we have and don't have, but anyways, so those are paid features in the system. There's some document in like a network drive that details all the pay, like how much or what needs to be paid for or something, and what comes with the system. I don't know. Have you seen does anybody show you the network drive? Like did Antelmo or Chris? So there's like a bunch of network drives. Like if you go to Windows Explorer, and if you go to the PlantStar one, there's like J. I mean, there's a bunch of them. There's Public, which has a bunch of stuff, and there's PlantStar. I think PlantStar, we're trying to move everything into PlantStar. And then there's something maybe in sales pricing or something. It might talk about it. I don't know. There's like a lot of documents in this network drive, but this is a shared drive that everybody sees, basically, PlantStar and Public. And then you have your own, you'll have your own like personal drive. So I have my own drive here. I put a bunch of files in.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, that's a huge tangent. Okay, so back to this APU interface. So something you'll see on most pages. So most things will have what's called a browse page, and it's basically a table format of the things that you've created in PlantStar of that thing. So like machine browse, I can see all the machines that I've created in PlantStar in a table format. And I guess I'll talk. Maybe I'll talk about this table thing in a second. I'll just go top down. So if there, I'm in the machines section. I'm looking at all things about machines. If there's other pages to see different things, you'll see a little nav drop down here where you can go to different things. So I'm looking at machines, machine browse. I can go over to this other one. It's called machine groups. I'm still in the machine section. I'm just looking at this other machine. I'm looking at machine groups now. Machine groups are just a group of machines. So like I can just say, hey, machine 1, machine 2 are in this group. And this is used for, especially on the DCM interface, but in other places too, where maybe I'm a factory floor supervisor or something, and I only care about a certain set of machines. I have the northwest section of the factory, and I only care about machines 1 through 20, not, and there's like 1,000 machines. So I can just make a group for that set of machines. I can call it my group and call it whatever I want. And now I can use it as a filter in other places so that I can just sort of filter down, because there's a lot of places where you'll see, I'll just give an example. On the DCM interface, you can filter by machine. So if I say all machines, that's going to show every single machine. But if I want to filter down, I could just say I only care about these subset. So let me just always filter by that. But I'll come back to that later. But the point is, that's in the machine section, and it's sort of another thing I do with machines. So there's this navigation drop down. If you can create things, then you'll usually see a create button and a delete button up here. So here I can create a machine, or I can delete machines. I'm trying to click this button right now, but it's not clicking. That's because it kind of utilizes these checkboxes. So I can delete more than one thing at once. This thing here shows how many items I can see per page. So this isn't a great example, but let me go to a different page. Then job browse page. Oops. If I'm looking at 25 items. Oh, there's only 15. Oops. Okay, well, there's 15. If I change it to 10, then now I'm only looking at 10. You'll see this table is now paginated, basically. So I look at 10. Now I can look at the next 5. And I can clear that also right there. There's a search box. So I can search. If I want to find a job by something specific, maybe product name or something, I can search by it. It's not the most amazing search thing ever, but most of the time it can get you what you're looking for, I would say.
Okay.
Now there's a bunch of filtering stuff now. So when you see I think it's called a caret. So if you see a caret, that means it's sort of an expandable section. So here's all these things I can filter by a bunch of things. So maybe I want to find the running job on machine 1, on my first machine. So I can filter by that. I can search for machine. I can say, and I'm filtering by job for a job. So a job that has started, but it hasn't ended. Basically, if a job has ended, that means it started. So I have to specifically say, it hasn't ended. I can apply that filter with the apply filter button, and then the table will just have one row in it. Closes. So what it's showing here over here is that there's 15 total jobs, and my filter total is 1. So this is how many showed up in the filter.
Okay.
There's just one job running on this machine, because one job can only be running on a machine at a time. So I see that one job now. I can clear my filters with this clear filter button, and it'll just go back to what it was before. Let's see. Okay, so we talked about I have to click checkbox to to get that delete job button to happen. So I can click all these. Then there's like a couple other buttons here. So I can click all in filter. And what that'll do is if I filter down, so maybe this is a bad example, but if I filter down, it'll only select the ones that I have filtered out in order to do the action. So this delete button is just one example of being able to do multiple things at once. Select the checkbox to do multiple things at once. So I'll just talk about that, delete. So maybe I want to delete all the jobs that I've filtered down by. I would click this button. Now this button over here, this selects, I believe, all of the ones on this page. So it doesn't select every single, like the ones on the other page. It's only selecting these. I would only be deleting the ones on this page.
Okay.
Which means, if let's say I want to delete them all, then I just wouldn't have any filter at all. So in this case where I clicked all in filter, it actually would delete every single one because that's how many are in my filter, meaning I don't have any, like I didn't filter by anything, so it's all of them. But if I had filtered down by this one thing, and then now I have 4 things in the filter, when I click all in filter, then it's only going to do those 4 things in the filter. So that's some filtering you can do. All the different things have different filter stuff. So things that are relevant to it. So for jobs, there's like what product and what machine and did it start. These are the types of filters on job, but other things have other filters like machine. You can filter by basically what DCM it's on, or is it an enabled machine or whatever. So these filters are different depending on what thing it is basically that you're looking at, what you're browsing. You can sort. There's a sort on this table, so you see these arrows for ascending, descending sorts. Now, I think this thing's kind of broken right now. I don't know why there's supposed to be the icon is supposed to actually be here. It got for some reason it's gone. But this would be basically showing ascending order, and then if I click it again, it'll be descending. So now it's 3, 2, 1. You can also do multiple sorts. So this is a bad page to do it on. Let me choose a different page. So I'll do jobs names ascending. And then I can also do another sort. So I could also sort, the second sort would be by product name. Maybe I'll even do a descending just to show that. I don't know if it just worked. I don't even think that worked, honestly.
Yeah, when you sort it, is it going by the numbers?
Well, it's alphanumeric. So here, let me just go back to the other one. Like, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2. This is actually correct.
Okay.
Because it's it can't recognize that this is 1, but this is 10, which is a higher number than 1, right? It actually sees this as text. So one's
all the ones, then all the 2. I see. Okay.
Right. 1, 0 comes before 2, basically, because this starts with a 1. So
gotcha.
Technically it's correct. I don't know that anything has figured that out yet necessarily.
Right.
Like even if you do it in like in Windows, I don't know if you can sort in Windows like in this, but yeah, like by name, if I were to sort this by name, well, this is a bad example because the years. Actually, it did it. How did it do that? Wow, this thing's a genius. How did it do that? I don't know. Look, it put 9 before 1, 0. That's amazing.
Huh.
I don't know. I feel like there's different ways to do it, but let's see what sort by says. Yeah. Wow. Okay, well, that's something to think about because that's really cool.
Make a note.
All right, yeah, maybe I'll write that down. I don't know. I forgot what the explanation here is, but actually, yeah, we'll do that. I'm writing, why is alphanumeric sort not smart? So we'll see. But okay, but anyways, and also it looks like this sorting's all messed up. Like maybe that has to do with why the icon's gone, but when I did that second sort, I think it should have put, so this says negative product name. So I don't know. I got to look into that. I think we know about it, but I don't know what we were going to do about it.
Gotcha.
Okay. I think that's sort of all those elements that you're going to see. If there's more things you can do, you'll see buttons more buttons show up here. So let's go to the DCM page. It has the create, it has the delete, but it also has, you can cold boot, and so there's other things you can do. So there's other buttons there. Some other UI elements you'll see are like multi-selects. So let me go to one of these. Here's a page where I'm creating a group of things. So you'll see I can the left side is what I have available, and then I can drag it over and select multiple things, or I can click, 3 of them at once and move them over by clicking this add button. Or if I want to remove it, I can drag them out or multi-select it and remove them. So that's a UI element. You'll see if it's draggable, you'll usually see this like icon here. So this arrow icon, you'll also see it on another page on the job scheduler. There's a lot of dragging you can do on this page. So if I remove a job from the schedule and then I go to changes I've made, you'll see that icon again, which means, you can drag this. I can drag this one back up onto the
That's
schedule.
cool that it's all
So,
just being able to drag it and everything.
yeah. Yeah. Let's see, what other elements do we see? So there's notifications in the system that appear when you do something. So there's either like a green notification, like a success, or red, which is like some error happened. So if I go to create a job, let's see. So, okay, I guess I jumped the gun a little bit here. Sorry. Let me take a step back here. So when you go to create something, you'll see a form pop up, one of these modals, and it'll keep you on the page. And so you'll see it's kind of like overlaying the page we're on, and you'll be able to save or just cancel out. So if you want to get out of this modal without doing anything, you can hit cancel, you can hit the X button, or you can just click outside of it and it'll close. If you do that, your changes are lost. It doesn't remember the changes you were making. So if I want to create something and I'm like blah 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 blah, and I'm like, oh wait, I got to go do something else, and I leave this without saving, it's not going to remember. It also, you see red asterisks on the fields, which means the required fields. If you don't enter in all the required fields, you can't save the thing. So if you do want to like, oh, well, I'll save what I've done so far and go do something else and come back, you'll have to fill out all the required fields. Sometimes you'll see, this, we've seen this caret before, but you'll see like a caret thing, which will open up different sections. Sometimes there's tabs. So we're looking at creating a job. And there's like a whole job section to it, but there's some other thing you can do. So you can go click the tab, and then there's some other input situation on that tab. Yeah, so this would be a form that you can see that you'll see, and depending on what the thing is, you'll see different inputs in the form. Sometimes there's check boxes, which is just is something true or not. You'll see drop downs. So some things you can select one thing via drop down. You'll see buttons to add things. So if I add one of these things, a bunch of fields popped up, or I could remove it, it goes away. You'll see date time pickers. So on this job, for example, we say when do I need this job to be done by? So when's it required by? And click the calendar, and I can choose month and day. I can click the clock and choose the time. So and then that'll fill it in here. So I think this button, yeah, just says go to today, and it'll just put that time, but I can click a different day.
So then it's always in there and they know when it needs to be done by.
Yeah, and I'll go through all of these things, but yeah, this required by date time, it's the place that it's used right now really is on the schedule. The scheduler, it'll color the job a certain color if you're within a certain range of the required by date time.
Okay.
to tell you like, so if it colors it red, it means you're not going to make your required by date time. If it colors it orange, it'll be like you're watch out, you might not make it, and if it's green or gray or whatever, then it's like, yeah, you're fine, you'll make it. So
Okay.
We'll show all these things a little later on. Let's see, I'm trying to think of just all the things you might see. Okay, well, anyway, so that's, if you hit create, that's what you'll see. On a browse page, for all the things you create, if you can edit it, you'll see like a hyperlink basically on the row, and you can click it and it'll open up that form and with all the fields filled in for that specific thing. So this job is an actual job that got created. So here's a bunch of values in it basically. Okay, so I was talking about notifications. So if there's different types of notifications. So let me just show one of them popping up. Oh yeah, no, I'm in an older version. If you don't fill in a field, it'll basically tell you. But let me do something that I'm pretty sure will make an error notification come up. So I hit save. Nope, let me do that. I forgot. Okay, so here's an example of a good notification success. It's like, yeah, I created this job. We put in that after a certain amount of time, that notification goes away. It just kind of fades away, and it's not saved anywhere, so you can never see it again. So I guess you got to read fast, and you'll find it. But I was trying to give an example of an error thing. So let me put in no parts required. I think this brings up a problem. And I'll do that. So if I go to save this job and I didn't put in the right information or I missed something, that wasn't as simple as like a field on the actual form, but it was more of the system has to figure it out, we'll see it in a second. So I hit save. I get this error log. Now, okay, we probably need to fix this up a little bit. An error log is basically for if there's a bunch of errors at once, it'll just give you this log that has all of them, and you can, expand it or not. We've kind of started using them just even if there's one message, it'll show click the show button rather than just showing the message. But like this notification is saying that at least one subjob is required to have a number parts required value greater than 0. So the point of this is that it wasn't just that I didn't put the right value into one input. I actually didn't put the right value into more than one input, and there was some sort of it had to do some logic, in the back end. I had to figure it out. It wasn't just as clear as, oh, you didn't put in a required field, because and I don't worry about the specifics of this, but because we'll get to, I'll explain this in more depth later. But when I'm making a job and I'm saying how many parts it needs to make, now there's this thing called subjobs, which we'll get to, but I basically said it doesn't need to make any. But there's actually more than one of these subjobs. So each of those are making a certain number, its own number of parts. And I basically said neither of them needs to make any. So that's not possible. We can't let them save that. Basically, we can't let them put that in, because then that's a job that's not making anything. And
Sure.
It also, it kind of, if we do allow that, it kind of screws up the job scheduler a little bit. Just as this is sort of not really important, but I'll just say it anyways. And I'll talk about this more later too. But on this job scheduler, you'll see like this job is a certain amount of length on the scheduler itself because of how much time it's estimated to be. Basically, this is a job that is scheduled in the future but hasn't started, and it's just scheduled on this machine to happen later, and it's estimated to take 2 hours and 43 minutes. That is estimated based on how they configure the job. So if they said, I need 10,000 parts and each cycle is supposed to take 30 seconds or whatever, it uses these pieces of information to say, okay, if all that's true, then this job should take this amount of time, and then it can put it on this thing. So if we let them put 0 for how many parts it needed, that's a job that estimated time is 0, right? Because
Yeah.
so it would just be a tiny sliver on here and it messes everything up. So yeah, so I mean, it's true that if they put 1 part, then I think it also makes this tiny sliver and you can barely see it. But anyways, if you put 0, it's a problem. So yeah, when you hit save, we give this error and we say why, and then they go fix it before saving it again. The interesting thing you might have noticed was I put, before it let me save it, and I was like, what? I was like, oh, whoops. You can put 0 for one of these subjobs, and then you can put a real number for the other one, and it'll let you save.
Okay.
Some of it has to be making parts. Like there has to be something making parts, but all of these subjobs technically don't have to be, I guess. So, anyways, that's the error notification. There's another one. There's like yellow, which is warning. Usually that's okay. So I guess it's kind of debatable, whether that one I just did should have been red or should have been yellow. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it should have been yellow. It should have just been warning that like, hey, you can't save it because of this, rather than like an error. But I don't know. So usually a red one is like, this is a problem. So maybe it should have been warnings. We definitely use warning, like yellow, for if you do this, then this other thing is going to happen. So just know that, that kind of thing.
Right.
There's also blue, which is information. And that could happen. I believe that happens if I were to create a job here on the schedule. This is just one example of where this might happen. Let's save this. I think when this, yeah, okay, it'll give a little info box and say, something was added to unscheduled jobs. It's just a piece of information. So there's red, there's yellow, there's green, there's blue. Okay, so these are the kinds of things you'll see. If we see any more UI elements that I didn't bring up, we'll just talk about it then. Okay, so that's kind of all the things you're going to see on the APU interface. And so let's just go over the DCM interface just so you see the elements of that as well.
Okay.
So this is the DCM interface. At the top, you'll see this logo, which just tells you what version you're on, and it also has an instruction manual, but just for the DCM. So the APU side of things had an APU manual and the DCM manual, so 2 separate. Oh, look at that. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not working. Look at it, but it's not. Oh boy, I don't know why that's happening. But on the DCM, it just has the instructions for the DCM itself. It tells you what DCM you're on. I think we've kind of decided that people don't care necessarily about, like, they don't think, like, at the factory level, they don't think about things in terms of DCMs.
Right.
But I guess this can help. Maybe people will understand stuff. So that's there. It tells you what time it is. Now this is interesting. We'll talk about this in a second, but you can log in, but you don't have to in order to use the DCM. And then you can also change the language. Then there's these tabs here, and this is how you navigate around to the different pages to see the different things. So we're looking at the job summary page. Is showing you for a specific machine, what's going on that machine right now. Basically, there's like part counting. Here's the parts that are being made on this job right now. How many and how many are rejected and all that kind of stuff.
So are you editing anything on the DCMs, or you're just
You
viewing?
can. There's a
Okay.
lot. You can do different actions on the DCM. I'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
But yeah, so these are the different pages you can go to. You can come to the down page and see what's down. I'm going to be going through all these in much more depth later on, but most of these pages have this filtering here, these two drop downs, and this is how you can look at a specific machine basically. So I'm looking at machine 1, but I could look at machine 2 and see it's whatever's on this thing. So okay, there's no job on this machine. So actually this job summary page changed. Basically, it remembered what machine I was looking at across the tabs. So I changed it to machine 2, and then I switched over here. If I changed to machine 3, and then I went to like the tools thing, I'm still be looking at machine 3. So that's kind of all you'll see here. That's kind of it for what the DCM is. It's this thing and then all these pages. Like you asked, so can you do things? So you can do things on the DCM. And there's security that can go along with each action. So every single individual action can have a security setting put on it on the DCM. So like for example, starting idle, we put it's configured to require an access code in order to do it. So someone would have to know the access code to do that. But other one,
certain people out of doing certain things.
yeah. There's a few different security settings we have, and I'll talk about it more later. But I'll just tell you now, we have open, which means that anybody can just do it. So maybe I want to start the next job. I can just do it. It didn't ask me for any credentials. So that specific action is configured to just allow anybody to do it. But it's like start idle has access code. There's also username and password it could require, or employee ID. So those are the 4 different security settings we have. Just to kind of bring it all together. So I mentioned here that you could log in, but you don't have to. So right now we're looking at this page and nobody's logged in. This is just, if anybody were to go to this IP address, they would see this without having to log in. They would see the whole DCM and everything about it. And like I said, we could put the security settings, and one value of that, like you said, is you don't let people do things you don't want them to do. There's also an improvement from the old system to 4.0 is that we track every action that anybody does in the system. So that's whether it's on the APU side or on the DCM side. Anytime anybody does anything, it gets tracked. Just to show you where it's in I'll show you this later, but in the user section, in user action, we call them user action events, and you can browse that, and it's a log of every single thing that happened. So I wish I could. Okay, this all has to do with the process variables, but okay, here's one. So on the server, so this is telling me that on the APU somebody edited a tool, this specific tool. This is when they did it, and this was the change that they made. So what this is saying is that someone removed a tool from a job. That's basically what it's saying.
Okay.
And the user column says who did it. So every single action, when they did it, and what the change was. So on the APU side of things, it's easy enough to know who did it because you have to be logged in on the APU in order to do it. On the DCM, you don't have to be logged in, and that's by design. That came over from the old system too. I guess I think the thinking is that on the factory floor you'll just have this an HMI there that has the DCM interface, and operators can just walk over and do stuff. And if they had to come over and every single time they had to log in or whatever, it'd be really annoying. So it's just there, and nobody has to be logged in. Now that causes an issue for tracking who did what, because, like for example, I said the 4 security settings. So one of them was open, and that means anybody could walk up and do it. Any guy off the street could walk up and do it, because all you got to do is walk over and do the action. So you can't really track who did that. The other security settings, well, okay, I'll just go through them. Open, you can't know who did it. Access code, you also can't know who did it, but you can narrow it down by who knows the access code.
Right.
Username and password, you can know who did it. And employee ID, you know who did it unless you're in some factory where everybody knows each other's employee IDs.
Do you know what's the most common, or it's just too new yet?
I'm not sure. I feel like it might be open, but I don't know. Now there is so for open and technically access code, I guess, there is another way to sort of narrow it down. So one thing you do in PlantStar is you add users. So you create users, and you can set a user as an operator. And what that does is that if a user is an operator, they can come in on the DCM interface to this operator check-in checkout page, and they can check in basically to machine and say, Sandra Rivera I'm starting to work on this machine, and they can check in. What that does is that gets tracked in the system of when these operators are checking in and out. So using the user action event. Okay. Let me take a step back. When nobody's logged in and an action is done, and it's got an open security setting or access code, then when you go to look at the user action event, that log, the user is called generic user or something. Generic. Let's see. I think it's just generic user, or it's something like that. Point is, it's not a specific person. There is like under the hood, they're just kind of a user that we have to put in. So we put it in generic user. It means nobody. So the user action event still gets created. It's still logged that the thing happened, just not who did it. And so we know when it happened. And so if somebody's checked in, that also gets logged. That's in a different logging section called operator check-in event periods, but that's also logged. So like when I just logged in or checked in as Sandra, that got logged. So you can put those two pieces of information together and say, oh, who was, when did this action happen and who was checked in at this time, to sort of track who did it. The reason that we put this whole tracking thing in is I believe it's because the old system didn't have it, and I think something that happened over and over and over again was a customer would be like, hey, this thing happened in the system, it's your guys' fault. And we couldn't be like, actually, this person did it this time. Like we had to be like, oh, we don't know who did it. So I guess we have to sort of
feature to have.
Yeah, so we put this in here to help with that basically. And yeah, so with this operator check-in thing, like you can narrow it down, but you can't really ever know who did it, I guess. I guess that would mean that if I was a Syscon employee and I had to do something, I would recommend always being logged in on the DCM when I did it, if I had to do something on the DCM, just because that'll get logged and then we'll know that we did it. But anyways, that's all sort of in service of that. Yeah, we kind of got, okay. That's something you might see on the DCM, is those sort of asking for credentials. Okay. we're sort of at the end here. So I don't know if you had any questions about anything we talked about. We kind of got a ways to go here. And this was sort of just supposed to be an introduction to things. I
Sure.
don't know. Yeah.
No, I think it was good. I mean, it was interactive. I think we talked a lot throughout that answered questions that I had. So right now it's just taking it in, and I'm sure as we keep adding steps in, more questions will come about.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. And I also I'm gonna share with you. I don't know if David shared them with you, but there's other videos.
Okay.
So of like the previous, like I'm basically wrapping up another whole training, long session that I've done with other people. So I've made a bunch of videos, so I can send those to you. And this, I'm recording this one, so I'll share it with you also.
Okay.
There are the manuals that we saw. So, okay, you can get to any of these systems. I mean, this is my local dev system, but that we have dev systems running that are available on the network. But maybe I'll just say that for now, there is a copy of these manuals in the public drive, L drive, AP manual, DCM manual. So if you want to use those, to like look through.
Okay.
So should we just schedule here? I'm gonna actually stop the recording.